Hello, everybody. Welcome to What the Frick Live. I'm your host, Emily, and I have Will Martinez with me. Hello, Will.
Good evening. How are you? It's been a
I'm doing
while.
good. I know. I'm gonna be rusty tonight. I'm already nervous. Why do I always get nervous over these things?
Oh, and then you're fine after. It's like, oh, it was fine.
We've done the
Right?
show for a long time now, but I still get
Yeah.
nervous, especially if we have a break or anything like that. But
That's a good thing, I think.
yeah. So, anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. So if you're watching, please give us a heart, make some
Mhm.
comments. It keeps us in the algorithm on Rumble. Give us a thumbs up. I'm going to really start pushing Rumble a whole lot more here in the near future. But we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Sorry for the long break, but I already sent Will the lineup. We're back for next
Yeah, we
time,
got a good lineup
like
coming up.
10 weeks or something like that now. So
Yeah.
we're back every Friday night here at 7 p.m. Thank you everybody for tuning in via podcast, because this past week we had a breaking, even though we haven't had a show, we peaked. We had a top
Yeah.
100 peak on Apple Podcast in
I
Great
saw
Britain.
that.
So I was
I
so
saw that.
excited.
That's
Yay.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
And
thank
also, thank you for having my back earlier this week with some nice internet trolls that we had on
Oh, I
Facebook as
know.
well.
I haven't trolled in a long
Oh,
time, but
oh my gosh, but they get your blood boiling,
I
don't they,
know,
huh?
that did. I was like, "How dare her." No. Yeah, I
Hmm.
will stick up for Will. I know he does all kinds of
Oh,
research.
thank you. No, you did. Thank you so much. I was like, oh, that's Emily sticking up for me. And I was like, all right, Emily, quit it. She's just gonna keep going. I was like, stop already.
I did it. I
Because that's
turned
why I stopped early. I stopped early. I said yawn. I was like, yeah, this is I already know where that's gonna go because those trolls, they just all they do is just keep on and keep on and
They
keep on.
do. They talk in
Yeah.
circles. It's word
Oh,
salad.
exactly. That's all it is. It's all BS, but yeah, it's all
So
good.
speaking of
Thank you.
Dark Fringe Radio, what's going on over there other than the trolling?
Besides the trolling, which is great, we're keeping the social media stuff really going, obviously there. So
Mhm.
check up all our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Dark Fringe Radio, and of course our website darkfringeradio.com. But we've been on a hiatus. But next week we're going to be doing a live show for once in our lives. So we're actually going to do
Wow.
a live show next Saturday. So keep up to date. Go to darkfringeradio.com with all the dates and times. I don't have exactly time yet set, but it will be on Saturday. I just don't know what time yet. So just keep on darkfringeradio.com for more information.
Oh, please let me know because I don't.
Of course.
Is it going to be daytime, nighttime?
Oh, it's nighttime, definitely.
Nighttime.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Yay.
nighttime
All
people.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I have no
Yeah.
life, so nighttime's good for me because I was like, during the day. Well, maybe I do have a life during the day. It's
Oh,
adult life, like
yes.
grocery shopping, cleaning
Right.
house, but no
Right.
Saturday night life.
Laundry. Yeah. Laundry. Yeah.
So
Oh.
thank you everybody. We have a really awesome guest coming on this evening. We've never
Mhm.
had someone on the show before that we talked about the pyramids and things, but we have Stephen
Mhm.
Myers that's coming on. He's an author and researcher, and he's a visionary founder of Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. He has a deep fascination with technology, which ignited his passion for uncovering the Great Pyramid, lost technologies and things. So we're going to bring Stephen on right now to the show. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Steven.
Hello. Thank you both for having me on the show. I appreciate this opportunity.
Well,
No,
thank
thank you.
you. We appreciate you because you
Mhm.
have done a lot of work and
Mhm.
with this research of the Great Pyramid and things over there in Egypt. And that's what I want to start out with asking with you. You know, it mentions here that you do have a dedication to technology and things, but what drew you over to Egypt? Was it like a first trip, or was it something you're already always interested in?
Well, I've always been interested in technology, kind of a techno nerd, even before computers. And I like antique gasoline engines, the old stationary one lunger engines. I'm a ham radio operator, that type of
Mm,
thing,
Mhm.
and all of that, and plus a whole bunch more. My education is rather technical, so I like technology, maybe more than people sometimes. But I also like history. You know, when I was in high school and we were studying World War II, I was more interested in the range of the planes or how far the cannons could shoot on battleships, more so than the politics, that type of thing. So I do like technology. And if you like technology and history, possibly you will look at the Great Pyramid. It's a highly technical 45-story skyscraper that was built in ancient times. So then I got interested in studying how it was built and why would people go to such an effort to build such a big structure.
Mhm. Mhm.
well, I got a lot of questions that I have about that and my theories and thoughts on it. But I want Will to start out too with a beginning question here. Will, if you
Okay.
don't mind, yeah.
No, I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all. So let's start from the beginning, Stephen, if you don't mind. Let's go to the question everybody wants to know. What is the theory? Because we there's so many theories on how the pyramid was made, or the pyramids were made in Egypt. You know, a lot of people say that was slaves that trekked quarries of rock from one quarry to the sites of the pyramids, and then uh, there's a lot of other outside theories as far as maybe technology that maybe was lost over time or maybe forgotten. What is your theory on how these structures were made and came to be?
Well, there's a lot of ideas certainly out there, some that are conventional, but that doesn't make them valid, and also unconventional ideas. You know, at one time, penicillin was a very unconventional idea. So being unconventional doesn't invalidate an idea. But anyway, what I think is that the original builders were geniuses, that they were tremendously smart and understood the world around them, and were able to, with that understanding, develop some rather high technologies in cutting stone and transporting different heavy payloads, if you will. So I think that they used water locks like those in the Erie Canal or the Panama Canal, that type of thing, and were able to move and lift the stones effortlessly. They, when building the Great Pyramid, the first stones that were, this is very simplified
Okay.
explanation.
Yes.
The first stones set in place were the casing stones for the first level. So that made a square wall up on the building site, and those stones are still cemented together watertight. So they were able to supply water to the building site, and they filled that pond up, and then they had a series of water locks from the Nile River up to the that square pond. And recently a new branch of the Nile has been discovered that's quite near the pyramids. So that lends credence to an idea that water is related to pyramids. But anyway, they systematically move stones on barges up these water locks into that pond, and then move the stones off the barges and set them into the pond. And when that pond was filled with stones, the first level of the Great Pyramid was completed. They followed that process along. They put the next layer of casing stones on top of the first layer, let them be cemented together, and added an additional water lock, and then filled that next higher pond with water. And systematically, stones on barges came up all the way up to that higher pond, and they took the stones, from those barges and set them into the pond. And when that pond was filled, it was the second layer of the Great Pyramid was completed. And that went systematically, level by level, including casing stones, all the way up to the top.
Now, this is very interesting, and that makes a whole lot of sense, Stephen. But from the point of where what we've heard about pyramids all these years into like vibration frequencies and things like that, like maybe they had some kind of Tesla 369 stuff going on. And have you discovered anything to do with vibrational frequencies with this stone movement?
I did. I've been to Egypt several times. The last time I led a 13-day tour to Egypt, and the Great Pyramid is not vibrating. It's not oscillating. It's just sitting there, and there's no vibration going on.
It looks like Will Martinez is vibrating.
I am. I'm resonating right
Yeah,
now.
you're oh
Yeah,
man, that's a
Oh
369
yeah.
frequency
yeah.
out there.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Well,
talk about 369 and it's important,
yeah.
and Tesla and all of that. But
Well,
I
think
don't
of
know anyone that's I know about 3, and I
well,
know about 6, and I know about 9, but I can't move a 70-ton payload.
well, I think of, Coral Castle down in Florida, Ed, Leedschlinen or something. I don't know, Will
Yes.
might know him.
Mhm.
Coral Castle, I think of,
Oh,
down
Russell.
there, Ed
Yeah, Ed
Leedschlin
Liebenstrom, I think it
or
is.
something,
Yeah,
he like
Levenstrom. Yeah.
yeah, he
Mhm.
had those massive, boulders and rocks and things. How did he move that stuff? Like,
Well, that's a
you know?
mystery because
Uh-huh.
he didn't show anybody, so we don't know
Mm.
if he used what they call cribbing, if you will.
Mhm.
Where you kind of move it and put a little block here, and then you move it like this and put another block over here. We don't know if he used a block and tackle. I know there was some steel, chain, and other steel objects at the Coral Castle that are still there.
Mhm. Yes.
So that specifically is a mystery. The largest
Mm.
stones he moved were about 30 tons,
Mhm.
little less than half the largest stones of the Great Pyramid. Also, he built Coral Castle as a tourist attraction, roadside
Mhm.
attraction.
Mhm.
Died with $1,400 when he
And
died.
but I think too, he was like 5 foot tall too, right? He was
He was what now?
5 foot tall as well. So that's why it's a huge mystery too, and how he got those stones moved because he
Well,
wasn't like
yeah, he
a
was a
taller man.
hermit to
Mhm.
say the least. He also moved his stones from one location to a better location for
Mhm.
tourism, but he used trucks, diesel or uh, gasoline powered trucks to move his stones.
Mhm.
So I don't think that there is any type of overlap between Coral Castle and the Great Pyramid. Some of those stones were moved 400 miles. Also, some of the stones, many of the stones were in quarries across the river, and the builders move stones across the river, and these things don't apply with the Coral Castle. So it's a mystery and it should be studied, but
Mm.
it's hard to say. I would
Yeah.
I would say the two are dissimilar more than similar.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to think about the frequencies in movement and how a lot of us believe that ancient technology does consist of those frequencies and technology that we may start be using it again today. So when I think of pyramids, I think of that right now. But your idea of the Pharaoh's pump and everything makes a whole lot of sense too.
I appreciate that. There's
Mhm.
nowadays there's a lot of talk about frequency and 369, and that Tesla was fascinated with the pyramids. He just was fascinated, but there's no reference of Tesla ever saying the word Tesla, or excuse me, saying the word pyramid.
Mm.
He never. There's no reference anyway
Mhm.
that he said the word. The word pyramid is not in any of his patents. There's no reference of him writing the word pyramid. So the idea that Tesla was interested in pyramids has no foundation in any type of reference, if you will. So it's as much an urban myth as anything else. So, and it's actually a modern urban myth. If you read books, from the early 50s and earlier, there's no real mention of Tesla associated with a high technology of the Great Pyramid. But I do think the Great Pyramid is an example of ancient but very high technology.
Interesting.
Go ahead, Will. Follow up.
Well, yeah, no, I had a question, and there's something that I read, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, and I, wanted to get your, expertise or opinion on it. And it said that the pyramids, the tips or the points of the pyramids are pointed at exactly at a constellation. And is that correct? And is that maybe, of course, maybe by design, and maybe why? Are they trying to tap into some type of energy force, maybe from above? I mean, what's going on there if that's true?
There are some researchers that think that there's some sort of relationship between the Great Pyramid or pyramids in general and stars or constellations. They say that the vents of the Great Pyramid at one time, way back when, pointed to specific stars that were significant. But because of the precession of the equinoxes, then every 72 years, the sky moves 1 degree. So the vents are not pointing to any of those same stars. So if they were tapping into some energy, they're not tapping into that energy anymore. So what evidence we have is that the vents are pointing away from Orion and all of those other stars. So, and that can be interpreted a lot of ways. I tell people the ancients were trying to tell us in a symbolic way that the Great Pyramid had nothing to do with Orion because the vents are pointing away from Orion, about 60 degrees away. I don't know if you've ever gone hunting for deer, but if you're pointing 60 degrees away from your target, that don't work. So there's a lot of ideas about correlations and all of that. Less than 100 years ago, everyone was all enthralled with the correlations that people made up between the Great Pyramid and the Bible. I call it the biblical correlation theory. They had the pyramid inch, and they compared the Great Pyramid with the Bible and all of that. But that idea has mostly, except for religious zealots, has been rejected because it is based on very poor research methods, and the Orion correlation theory uses those same poor research methods. Correlations without causation, cherry picking two unrelated data points and comparing them is another logical fallacy. Math does not validate a correlation. I don't know if you know that or not. So they compare two things that have like similar numbers, and then they think they're related, but that's not true. And an alignment doesn't validate a correlation because the vents are pointing to other stars very precisely, but they don't say that's significant. So there's a lot very muddled research based on all of this star stuff.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
But do you think the Great Pyramid, it could be the Pharaoh? Who was the Pharaoh back then?
Khufu.
Didn't he come from the land of Shinar, which would have been Nimrod, and that's the Tower of Babel, and he could have mimicked what they were building. Maybe the Tower of Babel was more pyramid style than curvatured.
Well, yeah, just from your question, even what you're saying is rather muddled, if you will. I mean, it's I hate to say that, but actually, who built the Great Pyramid is not really the focus of my research. So it's hard to say, who built it. But I think the reason why they built it is that they wanted prosperity. They wanted a really big return on investment for that huge cost of building that massive structure. Some leader could be Nimrod's grandson or whoever you want it to be. Some leader made the decision to spend a huge amount of resources for this project. And so if the reason ended up being very small, okay, then the whole construction project was stupid. Okay. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Let's say you go down to McDonald's and buy breakfast, but it costs $70,000. That's a huge cost for a small return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
So if people suggest a reason for the construction of the Great Pyramid, but it's not a big reason, then that reason's probably wrong, because the original builders were geniuses who built the Great Pyramid. Mm-hmm. So pointing to stars is a rather small return on investment.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
Mm-hmm. Let me put it this way. The Grand Coulee Dam in Washington State on the Columbia River, biggest dam in the United States, generates electricity. The cost of operating that dam equals running the dam for 2 weeks. The rest of the electricity generated is like profit, if you will. So they built this huge dam, huge, 99% solid, like the Great Pyramid is 99% solid, massive, no ornamentation, just like the Great Pyramid, but it was very expensive, but it has a huge return on investment. Unbelievable, providing prosperity that we take for granted. Well, the original builders were the same kind of a thing, same kind of people. They built this huge, expensive structure, and they got a huge return on investment. And that return on investment was that Great Pyramid pumps water and provides prosperity for that civilization. So it's interesting.
So pharaohs are the huge wealthy people, the leaders back then. Enormous wealth they had, just like we have the oligarchs and stuff now. Enormous wealth. They can build anything that they want to. Do you not? I mean, so they built these pyramids to supply water, but didn't they also build the pyramids for the afterlife, like mummification, and it was like their tomb? And it's kind of like the royals when they pass away, they go down into the family tomb. There, they have specific places. Isn't that why some of these pyramids were built?
Well, my research is specific to the Great Pyramid, and I've been in other pyramids and all that. Some appear to be tombs; they look like a tomb. Most of the pharaohs were buried in holes in the ground in the Valley of the Kings. Been there. That's where King Tut was found. Nothing to do with the pyramid. Mm-hmm. Okay. But now listen to this. Now my research is specific to the Great Pyramid, but if they built that pyramid to house the pharaoh's carcass, if you will, and some treasure, it was a total failure. They failed because all of that stuff's stolen, over thousands of years ago. So that was a dismal failure if the Great Pyramid's purpose was to protect the pharaoh's body. Also, how do long open passages and also doors on pivots and sliding stones, how does that protect the pharaoh's treasure for the afterlife? Mm-hmm. No one has an answer.
I mean, to seal it in. I mean, to seal it in possibly, or
no, they're not filled in. They're long open passages, corridors, and they have a few stones that slide into place. Mm-hmm. To get to the pharaoh's treasure, you'd only have to bust through about 12 feet of stone.
Interesting.
But the original opening, that door, crawl through the open passages, and then, just chisel away at about 12 feet of stone, and you got all the golden treasure. It's nonsensical.
Mm-hmm. Stephen, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Since your theory is that the Great Pyramid is a huge pump, and that pumps water in and out of it. Theoretically, could you maybe even fathom further that they were able to use that motion of that water to create electricity as well. I mean, you could use that even now. Like you can even figure out now how, running water, you can use that for electricity if you have the right tools for it. Do you think that they even got further into that technology where they got into electricity and things of that nature?
I do. The Great Pyramid pumped water, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
that pumped water had a whole host of uses. Power
Mm-hmm.
heavy machinery. Our industrial revolution started with water power, certainly irrigation, and also they could use that for a lot of industrial and scientific applications. You can, with pumped water, you can make compressed air, and with compressed air, you can make high voltage static electricity. I see the
Mm-hmm.
Giza Plateau as a science center or industrial park more so than a graveyard or anything like that. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they use the high technology. Now, the engine in your car, think about this.
Steam engine.
All it does is make a shaft go around,
Right.
but you can do a lot of things with your car.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on a date. Hey, that's good. Or you can go to work or anything.
Yeah.
So
Right.
just because the engine only does one thing doesn't mean you can't utilize that application in many ways. And they did
Right.
with the Great Pyramid. So
Mm.
there's some large scale stone cutting. Well, how'd they do that? Probably they used water power to cut the stones.
Mm.
So and just a host of other applications.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's what I
talk
was
about
like.
that in my book.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think to me, because that to me makes a lot of sense. Because if your theory is correct, it adds on to how they were able to do everything else.
Yeah, they did a lot of things. They were geniuses. Now a hydroelectric dam, all it does is make electrons go through a wire. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but we have computers. We have Tesla cars. We have everything except in Texas. They don't have electricity, but everybody else does.
Poor guys
So
there,
Oh,
you know
Texas.
what I'm
no.
saying? I got
Poor
lights
Texas.
and the phone. I have this phone because water went through a dam and made electricity, and that's how I charge it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Great Pyramid was purpose built for one purpose and one purpose only, but that was very versatile for that ancient high civilization that built the Great Pyramid.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
So, Stephen, when you went to the Great Pyramids and you visited these locations many years ago, how many times have you been there now?
Several. I was there just
Okay.
last year and led a tour,
Okay.
13-day tour. Marvelous.
So,
Oh,
what
that's
made you?
awesome.
I know that would be fun. But
Well,
what made you start thinking that they used the water? Like, what got you to this point and come up
Great.
with
That's a
the theory?
great question.
Hmm.
Well, I was interested in technology. The Great
Hmm.
Pyramid is a 45-story skyscraper. It takes technology to make it and all that. So back then, when I first started, I didn't use the internet because it was before the internet. Go down to the library and go to the card catalog, find a
Yeah.
book. Hey, there's lots of books out there by Egyptologists,
yeah.
and they have drawings and everything about the big ramp that's bigger than the Great Pyramid itself. So, so all of that, and then the people with the strong back muscles,
Mm-hmm.
dragging the
Mm-hmm.
stones. So I thought, okay, well, these scientists, they have an explanation for the Great Pyramid. Now, all I need to do is see the demonstrations that validate their explanations. That's fair enough
Hmm.
in the realm of science, don't you think?
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I found out that Egyptology has never made a casing stone. They can tell you how they were made with a hammer and chisel, a mallet, and and
Mm-hmm.
workers just making them all day long, and
Yeah, but you
not
would have to be so
expensive,
concise, though. Like
huh?
by the way, they would have to be so concise to do it by hand. I mean, it would just make no sense.
It can't be done. Egyptology
Yeah.
has never even made one surface of one
Mm-hmm.
casing stone to demonstrate their stories. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah.
Egyptology says, oh, yeah, they dragged the heaviest stones just up that ramp without any handling scars, 70 tons. That's the weight of an Abrams A1 tank or a steam locomotive. That's all. So just take the wheels off the locomotive, drag it up a ramp, and people like me will go back into the woodwork. But Egyptology,
sounds so easy.
Yeah, Egyptology has never done that. It's like meeting a guy that's a cow jump over the moonologist. Okay, tells you all about cows jumping over the moon. You can read about it in literature, mythology, and everything else. And then you ask, well, can you show me a cow jump over the moon? Get out of here, kid. You're bothering me. And that's Egyptology. It's a science in crisis because it's got huge problems with how it conducts research. It validates their ideas using peer review, which is a very low standard of evidence, peer review. Everyone that already thinks the same thing, then they agree with themselves. The Piltdown skull was validated with peer review. There it is. We all think it's valid. The Piltdown skull, and that settled it. And all of those guys, those anthropologists, had to die off before anthropology would advance to acknowledge the visible file marks on the Piltdown skull. Although none of those guys changed their mind, they all had to die off. And that's what we're doing now, is waiting for Egyptologists to die off. And then maybe the next generation will pull their head out a little bit and acknowledge that their explanations are impossible to do in the real world. So, sorry about that rant.
No. You're right. You're right. No, it's crazy.
Go
ahead, Emily.
No, you go ahead.
No, one thing I wanted to kind of jump on was, you talking about that. There's been a lot of talk about how the timeline in history, as far as Egypt is concerned right now, is being pushed back further and further. So it seems like that even historians don't even know exactly when the timeline. I mean, have you run into that in your research at all during the Great Pyramid?
Certainly. Everything is up for debate right now. We're in a revolution of ideas. People, even 30 years ago, it's settled science. The Stonehenge, it was just there, and they sacrificed people on the big rock in the middle because they're all primitive people. And then it wasn't long till people, no, Stonehenge is pretty much an astronomical device to help, with calendar issues, with planting and harvesting and a host of other things, even determining eclipses. So we're in a revolution of thought, and things are getting pushed back. But if you really look at Egyptology, a lot of their assumptions or assertions are very tenuous. I seen they would say, well, there's some scratching on this pyramid, and it sort of kind of looks like a specific pharaoh's name. So we'll attribute that pyramid to that pharaoh because of some graffiti or whatever. It's very tenuous, and they certainly circle their wagons and very not open to any type of dialogue. Ask Graham Hancock, who was eviscerated or tried to be by Zooey Hawass when Graham Hancock tried to talk about, what about these other issues? The same happened to Dr. Robert Schoch, who is a geologist. I've met him, tremendous guy, more degrees than a thermometer, and he is really sharp. Read his books, several of his books. But he was eviscerated by Egyptology, character assassinated, because he said, well, based on geology, the age of the Sphinx appears to be quite a bit older than the story Egyptology has come up with. And boy, you don't want to do that if you're around an Egyptologist. That's a big no-no to actually question science.
It's a shame what they did to Graham Hancock.
It is both of them. But when you're not allowed to question the science, it ain't science.
Right.
It's either dogma, cult, religion. We
Well,
went
we
through
can't
all of that with COVID,
yeah, we
Did it
can't
come
question
from the
anything.
lab? You can't even ask. You weren't allowed
Yeah.
to ask.
Right. Yeah.
How dangerous is it? Can't ask.
Can ask. Right.
Yeah. But go get your mask. And
That's right.
I'm not trying to get
Stay 6
political,
feet.
but I'm just trying to
Yeah.
Right.
talk about the scientific part of it. And it's always been that way. It's always been that way. A guy named Wagner figured out continental drift. He was a weatherman, actually, meteorologist, and he figured out continental drift. And the geologists viscerated him, destroyed him, character assassinated him. But about 25 years later, they came up with plate tectonics, which is the same thing.
Same shit.
So
yeah,
it's just bizarre.
Somebody had to develop it and get a patent. It all comes down to
that's
money.
right.
Well, it's just science is wonderful, except when it involves people. Then there's egos involved. There's funding involved. There's all of these issues. They write their doctoral thesis on the Piltdown skull, and they think that it's valid until the day they die. That's not science correcting itself. That's a funeral advancing science. So, but anyway, the Great Pyramid was built to help people, and believe it or not, I've been viscerated by that too.
I'm sure.
The Great Pyramid provided a huge return on investment, and that type of thing. It wasn't a death ray. It wasn't a beacon for aliens or anything like that.
Power plant?
It is a power plant.
Yeah, it is.
If it makes elevated water, pumped water, you use that pumped water to generate electricity or power machinery or a whole host of other things. So my books, of course, talk about that. YouTube channel has a video series about how the Great Pyramid was assembled, and also another video series why it was assembled, and both are free, of course. So that's why I don't have
by the way, people listen via podcast too. His website, Stephen's website, is www.thepump.org. Stephen's here to pump you up.
We're here to pump you up.
Go ahead, Stephen. Go ahead. Thepump.org.
Thepump.org. There it is. Love it.
But can you imagine after they built, let's say, the Hoover Dam?
Yeah.
Amazing. It was just, it made it so Las Vegas could exist.
Great.
Shut off the Hoover Dam, and Las Vegas is a ghost town in 1 second.
Yeah.
So, that's, the Hoover Dam's a big concrete hunk sitting there by the river, but it provides a huge return on investment. So that's, that's the difference between us and the third world. The third world doesn't have the infrastructure we have. We have awesome infrastructure here in the United States, the power grid, the highway system, railroads, which I'm a big fan of, that type of thing. The internet, and other places don't have all of that. So we're swimming inundated by prosperity. But the people that built the Great Pyramid wanted that prosperity. And believe it or not, in the modern world, the largest water pump now, guess where it is? Where would you put the largest water pump in the world?
The Niagara Falls, maybe?
No, it's in Egypt on the Nile River. It's the Mubarak pumping station.
Well, I was thinking Panama Canal is what I was thinking.
No, the largest water pump in the world in modern times is in the Valley of the Nile. And I think the largest water pump in ancient times was the Great Pyramid in the Valley of the Nile. So it's interesting, and comes full circle, if you will. The same kind of people. We all have the same wants and needs and desires. I want to eat today, and I want to have some sort of a guarantee that I'm going to eat tomorrow. I want to
Right.
be able to heat my house and have some leisure. And ancient people wanted the same thing. Central Washington was just subsistence living with some Scrabble farms until they built the Grand Coulee Dam on the Columbia River, and then they now we all eat apples that were irrigated with pumped water and don't even realize it.
Mm.
And also, the Grand Coulee Dam helped with the production of aluminum. It takes a lot of electricity to make aluminum, which helped in the war effort, if you will. So,
Yeah,
give it credit for that.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I have a question since you mentioned Las Vegas, and there's been a lot of talk coming up here about the Grand Canyon out there and how that they believe that there's pyramids down in the Grand Canyon, and actually the Grand Canyon could be very similar to Egypt. Have you done any research on that or looked into that?
Yes, I've done all the
Mhm,
research that everybody else has, and there's
mhm,
not much to go on. There's
Mm.
no photographs of a cave with sarcophagus or mummies, anything like that. There's some newspaper articles from like 1903, with certainly with no real photographs, no evidence, no artifacts. So there's not much to go on, if you will.
And then
Some of
another question I have too, I've been holding off on this one, but I'm excited to ask this one, and I probably already know your answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Um, so it is proven that giants exist. They've existed. There's everything in Egypt is much larger than what we normally are, um, had in other areas of the country. All the tombs, everything there, the obelisk, all that stuff, and even in Appalachia where I live, there's been like 100 bodies found that were 25.5 feet long. So in my opinion, I do believe that giants existed. Do you believe that maybe people were a lot larger back then? Not necessarily giant form, but could handle those things more too as well, or because a lot of entrances to buildings and things were a lot larger than what we have now and things, so I'm just wondering if these, like, men of renown or however you wanna call them, some people called them warriors and guardians. Do you think that they really existed and helped build the pyramid?
Well, there were probably giants.
Mhm.
I would suspect that there were giants, but they would probably have a giant brain and decide, instead of using my back muscles, I'm going to make some water locks and just move levers.
That's what it just even helped me think
Yeah.
that.
Also, there is such a thing in it's hard to describe, but one reason to make very large monolithic, not monolithic,
Mhm.
but these
Mhm.
huge temples and stuff is to be to show your power, if you will. The when
To reach the
foreign
heavens.
dignitaries go to the White House, they are impressed. And when you go to these temples, you look up and you think, wow, it's amazing. And in ancient times, when the temples were first built, you look up and you say, well, yeah, they're powerful, and I'll probably tithe. You get my drift.
Well, you
So,
look at
so
the
that's
White House,
part of it.
though. The White House is absolutely terrible. We need a whole upgrade at the White House
Well,
compared to all
I'm
these
sure
other
I'm
places.
sure of that, but the point of it is, it's like a home court advantage, if you will.
Yeah.
But it shows the
Well,
strength as a way to show the strength of the either the government or religion, or the two are probably mixed. So it's that type of thing, not necessarily that. I think what you're getting to is what they call the big back muscle theory, which you have big, heavy stones, so you need big back muscles. No, I think the Great Pyramid was built by people who had big muscles up between their temples.
Mhm.
And
well, how much water would you need to move a stone of that size? Like,
oh, that's easy. The largest stones were 70 tons, and the Erie Canal was built uh, with this originally built the Erie Canal. the barges had a capacity of 70 tons, and the water locks could hold a barge with 70 tons. So in the 1830s, people and a lot of kids worked on the Erie Canal, were operators. And in the 1830s, kids and people could move 70-ton payloads all day long
Yeah.
with ease.
Yeah.
And
It's true, because living here in Florida, you go to a barge here, and you could see a big boat just on maybe 3 feet of water, and you're just like, wow, okay,
Right.
you got a 30-foot boat on this 3 feet of water, and it's just floating fine. So
Right.
I can see where you're coming from on that. Yeah.
Erie Canal was originally built 4.5 feet deep and hold a 70-ton payload. So it's it's an amazing technology. It is the 21st century technology of choice to move our heaviest objects, not the magic wand or giant's back muscles to move our heaviest objects, but water locks. The Panama Canal was upgraded with bigger water locks.
Right.
Instead of dragging the ships up a big ramp or something. So those engineers had an engineering problem. The ships were getting too big to go through the Panama Canal, and they solved it in the real world. Egyptology, on the other hand, can't demonstrate any of the stories they tell. It's just bizarre. I don't know how they get away with it. If you go to Colonial Williamsburg,
Yes.
they have, what it's like in the colonial days. They show you how they made cloth, how they tanned leather, how they bound books, coopersmithing, horse shoeing,
Cobbling,
glue, how they did in the colonial days. There's no controversy about all of those things because those reenactors are actually scientists providing a demonstration. Egyptology, in contrast, will tell you a story or a hypothesis, is what it actually is, but they will not provide a demonstration to validate it. They say, oh, casing stones
will not or cannot.
with hand tools. They won't do it.
Have you done it, Stephen?
My understanding of how the casing stones were
Here,
cut.
here. Hey, I have a middle schooler. We got homework project. We're gonna do this together, Stephen.
Okay. My
We can do it.
understanding of how stones are cut is superior to the entire science of Egyptology because I understand that using hand tools to make large scale extreme precision is impossible.
I
That
mean,
understanding is superior to Egyptology's understanding.
well, with just these stones with the pyramids and things, we got the Tartarian Empire and things, and all those buildings that
Mhm.
they were supposed to be just chiseled with, like, no way they had advanced technology. And honestly, if they used water to cut stone or anything like that, that kind of makes sense because it would be like more like detailed with like kind of like a laser cutting knife of water.
Yeah.
All those possibilities and others that we haven't considered are a possibility. But what is an impossibility is to make this large scale precision stone cutting by hand. It's never been done by any stonemason, any Egyptologist, anybody. You can your car has parts. Okay, go down to Napa, and if you need a distributor cap, the guy behind the counter doesn't say, well, I'm going to tell you a story about how distributor caps are made, but you can't get one anywhere on earth. Okay. A casing stone, a casing stone is a part, a component of a structure, and if you wanted to repair the structure, you go down, you would recreate the part. It's just strange how they get away with it. I don't know
That's
how
so
to do it.
funny. My car, love her heart, I don't like a car payment, so my car's in the shop right now, so when I go pick it up, I'm gonna ask the guys to tell me a story about the part. How did
Well,
this come about?
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand what you're
Yeah.
saying,
Totally.
absolutely, yes.
And Egyptology is the richest science in the world with their priceless artifacts, all their museum space, and all the paying customers to come in and look at that stuff that they stole from graves, but they can't pony up and provide a demonstration. You know, they've never moved or lifted a 70-ton stone 1 inch.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, it's
Man,
just
imagine how amazing it would be if they did do that and had that demonstration. Imagine the
it,
money that would come in for that.
yeah. Can you imagine how much money they'd make on their TV documentary?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
it would be as amazing
So
as a
that
cow
makes
jumping over the moon.
me
Yeah.
think, are they doing this on purpose? Is there a patent involved? Is there licensing involved? Like, who owns what? And they want billions of dollars
Well,
for it,
I don't know if bronze
you know?
chisels are patented. I think that they have an explanation that cannot be
Or it's
done
technology
any
they
other
don't
way.
want us to know about because it would benefit most everybody to, you
They're
know,
not into benefiting people.
I know, so that's why they're gonna
It's about
hold it.
pride.
Well, that's
It's
why they're
about
gonna
It's
hold
pride.
about
it. That's why they're
pride,
not
but
gonna
Yeah.
demonstrate it. They're not gonna
Holding on to
demonstrate it.
old,
what they're
holding on to
doing
old things.
is
That's what it is.
they sat in a classroom and they were told
Mhm.
casing stones were made using
Mhm.
hand tools for 4 years at least. So then when they get out, they say casing stones were made with hand tools.
Mhm.
It's like a mystery religion or a cult, a priesthood.
Of
Regurgitated.
brainwashing.
Egyptology is.
Yeah.
So it's sciences come and go. There
Mhm.
was a science about the bumps on people's heads. You know, you can see my bumps,
Yeah.
and about how that relates to character traits called phrenology. We've all seen those ceramic skulls, busts, and they have little
Mhm.
areas marked out, for like
Yeah.
Like a
fear.
jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of
Mhm.
Yeah.
that, phrenology. They taught it in universities and everything else. But that science went away because it couldn't withstand the rigors of the scientific method. Egyptology is the next science that's going to wither on the vine and go away.
Mm. Interesting.
They will never change their
Honestly,
mind. They will never engage in the scientific method. They will never prove their funny little stories they've come up with. They would rather have their science become a laughing stock instead of changing. It will not
well, that's
adapt.
cognitive dissonance too,
It
and
is
a lot of
cognitive
yeah.
dissonance, and they
Uh-huh.
will die off. And Egyptology will become a cautionary tale
Yeah.
about how science can go wrong, and that's all it'll be.
Everything they taught us in school, I believe, was wrong.
It was.
Oh boy,
I
Everything was
researched
wrong.
publishing
Yeah.
companies of our books and stuff, and even our
Mhm.
Bibles. So, I've
Mhm.
gone down that rabbit hole, and I do believe almost everything we've ever been taught is wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, like,
Amazing.
yeah. So,
certainly a lot of it,
yeah,
but
a lot of it, most
a
everything,
lot
not
of it,
everything.
yeah. Well, the Mohs hardness scale
Mhm.
uh, is a test. You have, let's say, soapstone and a diamond, and you want to
Right.
know, well, which one's harder? You rub them together, and then you can tell. There's no controversy about the relative hardnesses of
Right.
various stones because the scientific method is employed, and there's demonstrations that show how it was done. All Egyptology has to do is get out their bronze chisels, make a casing stone, a full size casing stone like those at the Great Pyramid, and
Mhm.
I would go away.
I'm not
But
gonna
they
do
can't
that.
do
You're
it. They
never gonna
can't.
go
We don't
away.
want you to go away,
We don't
Stephen.
want you
Well,
to either.
they
Yeah.
what I'm saying is they can't put up, but they won't shut up, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
So it's, and then when you get into arrogance and arguments and that type of thing, then you're not involved in science anymore, like with Graham Hancock when he was treated like garbage.
Yeah.
That ain't right. That don't look good.
No. No, not at
So
all.
So when
Stephen,
you
what's
go
your
Oh, go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
Stephen, what's your opinion on? I know your research is strictly on the Great Pyramids, but what's your opinion on these other pyramids that are being discovered as of late? Like, for instance, in South America with lidar, they're finding like even civilizations and other pyramids like structures. Do you think all these pyramids are made for the same purpose, or are they made maybe for the region that they're at and maybe for that purpose or a different purpose? What's your opinion on that?
That's a great question. They're all pyramids have a different design. They have different sizes, different materials. Some are made out of 80-pound mud bricks that are sun dried. Some have elaborate passages, some don't. Some are made out of rubble, like those Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon in Mexico. They have different angles on the sides, that type of thing. So they have different purposes. And so I would assume some have a platform on the top,
Right.
but I think that they all have different purposes. It's kind of a universal way to make a tall building. If all you have is masonry or rubble, you have to have a building that is large at the bottom and small at the top. Okay. There's no other option. It's a architectural requirement. If you just have rubble or stone, even stones, we have I-beams and that type of thing, so we can build tall, skinny buildings. So it's just that I don't think it's a universal culture that built them all or anything, or that they are really
connected in any way.
a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, could it mark territory, like, Aztec?
Yeah,
and-
certainly.
and-
Just as Mount Rushmore marked
Right.
territory,
Mhm.
and that type of thing. So it could be to impress the peasants, if you will, and to say, we're the religious priesthood standing on this really high platform, and so you can give us 10% of your corn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons. Even what's that church in France that burnt? Notre Dame. Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Yeah.
It's all religious and everything, and it's beautiful, and it cost a lot of money, so it had a religious purpose. But for 800 years, people have tithed there, so it's
Served
pretty
a great
good return on
purpose.
investment.
Yeah.
You get my
There you
drift?
go. Yeah.
So
The money was a flowing. Yeah.
yeah. But let's say they built the something like the Great Pyramid. Oh, well, it doesn't really do anything. So, that would be pretty stupid, if you will. We could build a Great Pyramid, go in Nebraska, somewhere. It wouldn't cost over $40 billion. We could do it.
Oh, sure.
We can move 70-ton stones, that type of thing. The crane,
Like a version of Burning Man.
yeah,
Sorry,
like
Burning Man is
but
best built.
Yeah. Yeah.
the crane that fixed took out that bridge that was hit by the ship.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crane had a capacity of 700 tons, so we could easily build a big pyramid structure, and we could somehow have it symbolically tell people 10,000 years from now that we knew pi. We could do that. Only $40 billion. But the reason why we don't do that is because it has such a small return on investment that it would be stupid. And if the builders of the Great Pyramid were interested in us knowing that they knew pi, then that would be pretty stupid of them. And they are not stupid.
Unless they made a big amusement park inside, Steve, and it'd just be like,
Now, there you go.
There we go.
They didn't do that.
Pyramid Falls. Come on, everybody.
Yeah.
Pyramid Falls.
Yeah. Pyramid Land.
Yeah.
So
Pyramid Land. Yeah.
Pharaoh's haunted house.
Yeah. Pharaoh's haunted house. Yeah. Everything. Oh my gosh.
So
So,
real quick, Stephen, we're getting ready to come to a close, but I have your website and everything. Everybody's listening via podcast. That's thepump.org, but also have all the links for his YouTube, Facebook, and website in the description. But before we went live, you were talking about your third book that you've released. Can you tell us a little bit about this third book?
yes, my first book was about how the Great Pyramid was assembled. The second book is why they did such a thing, and that type of thing. My third book, there it is on the screen, Pharaohs Pump Analyzed. It's just much more in depth in every regard. Let me put it that way. And it's just more of this Great Pyramid water pump stuff. And it is, in fact, uh, pretty long with quite a few illustrations. So it's just available in ebook. But a fellow a long time ago in the 60s privately published a book. His name was Edward Kunkel, and his book was instrumental in my interest in his direction of research. And Edward Kunkel wrote a book privately published called Pharaoh's Pump. And this book analyzes his book, if you will, but it also talks about how things have progressed since his original book was published in 1962, which is a long time ago. And so it's more, like I say, more in depth than the other two. And they are both ebooks and softcover, but this is just only an ebook. So you're one click away from reading this book. Isn't that exciting? All
Yeah.
of them, actually.
Yeah,
like that.
Pharaoh's book. Your research is extensive, many years in this. We respect you very much, and your theories on the um, Great Pyramid. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, Stephen.
Well, I appreciate both of you
Yeah.
tolerating me and that type of thing. They can visit my website to contact me or ask any questions, find out what our organization is doing. But I just suggest to people read a book. That's how the revolution is going to look. You know, it won't be televised, and learn something. Get off, TikTok or something, and actually sit
Yeah,
down and read a
definitely.
book.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people are offended by that. They are, educated on YouTube or whatever, which is fine. I got stuff on
Yeah.
YouTube, but and also don't make a rash decision about this direction of research, but find out about it and then contemplate the information that the body of information that this research is about.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we appreciate you so much. We're gonna let you go and
Thank you,
close
Stephen.
out the show. Joe Fox, he's a faithful viewer. He's really upset he's missing this tonight, but I'm telling him right now, you can watch later, listen on the podcast, Joe, when you have time. But we appreciate you, Stephen, for coming on. Thank you. We'd love to have you back
Thank you
in
so
the
much.
future. And I'm definitely gonna be looking into that book where you compare from the guy from the '60s, Kunkel. Kunkel.
Edward Kunkel, yeah, he's
Okay.
he's a great guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Our foundation is named after his book, in effect.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. So
Okay, awesome.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen. We'll let you go. I'll be in touch.
Thank you,
Love to have
Stephen.
you back. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Stephen.
you both.
And there we have it. Stephen
There we go.
Myers, the pump. I'm here to pump you up. I would have died if he broke out in that like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah. That's funny you said that. I'll talk to you about that later. That's funny you said that. Yeah.
Or I also had pump up the jam, and then I had walk like the Egyptian in my head. I always try to find humor and everything. Everybody, a part of
Yeah.
me will always be a little bit immature, and I'm sorry
Yeah.
for
It's
that.
okay.
But
It's
it
nothing
brings
to do about
it makes me remember things a lot longer.
That's right.
So, but we have a lineup going on the next few weeks. Everybody's going to be super fun. We're going to get back in the groove of things. So, set it
Yes.
on your reminders. 7 p.m. live on Friday nights. Next week, Dave Edmonds, a good friend of ours, is coming back on the show because we're going to be strictly talking to Dave Edmonds about alien abductions only. He's been abducted. I've had some friends come out here lately that's been abducted. Even
I
was
want to be
on.
abducted.
I don't.
I do. We'll go
No,
for a ride.
man, my picker's off
Just leave
anyway.
it. Leave my butt alone, and I'm all right. But yeah, I'll go for a ride. Just leave
like
my
if you have an alien mask or something you can wear next week. Will wants to be probed. No, I'm
not
just
probe.
kidding.
No, I want to go on a ride, but not that kind of ride.
Well, our friend Chris Matthew of Forbidden Knowledge News can give you some psychedelics. He's
Oh,
really
there we
good.
go.
He's really good.
There
So
we
we're
go.
gonna have Dave Evans on. He did write. He's written several books, but What Do They Want is one that talks about alien abductions because I think we're gonna see an uptick in this in the next year or two, even more than what
Mhm.
we know now. But I'm really excited to have Dave back on next week. So thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Please share this out. Please, if you're watching Rumble, give us a thumbs up. It
Share,
keeps
share,
us in the
share.
algorithm. And we love y'all. We'll see you next Friday right here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. All available on all podcast platforms. Thank you all. Have a good night. Bye.